Achieving one part per million is a tough target. Today we are going to meet a business leader who has developed a business which has achieved the quality standard of one part per million. We are meeting Mr. Rohan Pallewatta, the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of Lanka Harness Private Limited. Let's go.
Chaturi, imagine a situation if you are given an opportunity to visit a foreign country for a scholarship. You have a choice to select from few countries: USA, England, Australia and Japan. Which country would you select?
Obviously, I would go for an European country because there is no language barrier for me. What about you, Tushar?
Obviously, I also would do the same. But today we are meeting a person, Mr. Rohan Pallewatta, founder and the executive chairman of Lanka Harness Private Limited, who took a different decision and completely made his life on that. So Pallewatta, could you explain us the story, the situation, what happened?
Very interesting entry anyway. And I studied at St. Anthony's College, Candy, and during my school days, I received a scholarship to go to Japan. But as you correctly stated, I had a choice between England, America, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan also was there. So I selected Japan for two reasons. What I thought was that had I gone to any other country like America, UK, Australia or New Zealand, I would be, of course, brushing up my English. But then I thought by going to Japan, I would pick up another language. So that was one reason that I decided to go to Japan. Secondly, I was very fond of martial arts, karate, judo, and this kind of stuff. So I thought Japan was the best place to pursue the interest in martial arts. For those two reasons, I selected Japan. And it was a cultural exchange program which I received soon after my ordinary level exams. And I was there in Japan for 1 whole year. So I was staying with a Japanese family, attending school. It was a school class there. And it was part of the scholarship that they took me to visit almost all the big conglomerates, big companies in Japan. Because most of the companies you have heard, because all the Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, Matsushita Denki, which is known as National Panasonic in this part of the world. So all the big companies, every other weekend they take me to a big company. So the present business idea was conceived in my mind on one of these visits when I visited Toyota. The production line ran into some kilometers, so that the person who was explaining the process to me took me in a battery operated silent car, the kind of car that you have in airports. Yeah. So I was seated in the sidecar and then was explaining the process. Then for a factory of that magnitude in Sri Lanka, by that time I would have seen at least 3,000 to 4,000 workers. But I hardly saw any. Of course, there were people standing here and there. So out of curiosity, I wanted to know whether it was a holiday at Toyota. Then he said, no, it's not a holiday. We have automated most of our processes. So having said that, we proceeded a few hundred meters further. And in a room to the size of maybe this room, there were about 400 people cramped in. And I could see through the glass that they were doing something swiftly. So once again, I wanted to know as to what they were doing. And I was told that they were doing an impact sensor for the airbag of the vehicle. So because now in Sri Lanka, the concept airbag might be relatively new, but then it has a history of about 40 years. Even at that time, the luxury cars, they had airbags. And my obvious question was that just a while ago you told me that everything is automated. So why aren't you automating this process? Then the answer was that that was a process that they cannot automate. It was labor intensive. It has to do, you have to have manual labor to do that. Then I just wanted to know, I was just 16 at that time, but I still wanted to know as to what was their takeaway salary per month. So when I converted that into Sri Lankan rupees, it was about 150,000 to 200,000 rupees. So I did not have to do any calculation. I mean, knowing what they pay for labor here in my country, I said, I mean, if it is a labor-intensive product, so why don't you start something like that in a country where labor is abundant, right? So then he said, a vehicle comes into being by about 17,000 components coming together if it is a standard vehicle, and if it is a luxury vehicle, about twice as that is about 34,000 components coming together. We may outsource certain components of this vehicle to other countries, but there are certain components that are called the critical components. These critical components we will never impart to another country, we will never outsource it to another country. Right. So the business idea was conceived, but then immediately whole lot of negativity. They said no, we will never delegate this. But at the end of the tour, although the answer was negative, I said, can I have a few samples of the sensors that I saw that you were assembling? I do not think that if you ever happen to visit Toyota, that they will give you any samples. But maybe for two reasons. That is, I was a student and I was on a study tour organized by their government. So maybe because of that, he was kind enough to give me 3 samples in a small bag. And with those samples, after completing my 1 year in Japan, I come back to Sri Lanka and once again go to school, that is St. Anthony's College, Kandy. Then I sit for my advanced level. I offer 4 subjects. Logic, political science, economics and Sinhala. Those were my subjects. And then once completing my advanced level, during my time, once you sit your advanced level, you sit your advanced level somewhere in August, and you get your results after about 5-6 months, January or February next year. So I had nothing to do once again. Soon after my advanced level, I went back to Japan. Because by this time, after being 1 year in Japan, I had picked up my Japanese. It was in a manageable standard. And I went back to Japan and I was employed this time at a place NHK Radio. That is the national television, although they use the word radio. It's Nihon Hoso Kyokai, which means Japanese national television. So I was there as a translator, English, Japanese and vice versa. And also that was during daytime. And in the evenings I used to work as a lobby artist, play the guitar and sing in a hotel called, 5-star hotel called New Otani in Tokyo. And as I told you, it was very easy to be a lobby artist because no one would stop and listen, they will just pass by. Especially I was supposed to, my contract was they wanted me to play Simon and Garfunkel on my guitar. So I was playing a lot of Simon and Garfunkel songs on my guitar. So those were the 2 things that I was engaged in while in Japan. One fine day I received a call from my father saying that I have come down in my advanced level, that I have failed my exams. I had F for Sinhala. So it was very difficult because to take it. As you know, during my time in the 80s, if you fail your advanced level, your future looks so bleak. Because unless you hold on to the mainstream, there is no stream whatsoever. Right? Because now today, of course, even if you do not have O-levels, there are institutes offering you MBAs even without the O-levels. But there are no institutes like that. Either you stick to the mainstream or you're out. Right? So that was so hard. So now only consolation was that I could do my exam for the 2nd time through my school. So I came back to Sri Lanka and applied for my advanced level once again. But this time I thought, now although I had F for Sinhala, not that I had not given my best shot. I had given my best shot. I have gone tuition, everything. But then I had F. So what I thought was, even if I put further effort, right, I might get a S or a C maximum. But that is not going to change the overall result. So therefore, why not change the subject? Thinking of it now, it was one of the most important strategic decisions I have taken in my life. But at that time, being a school boy, I didn't know even the word strategy. But then analyzing it now, you can say it's a very good strategic decision. Because now, I wanted to know whether I could offer for Sinhala, instead of Sinhala, whether I could offer Japanese as a subject for my advanced level. And yes, it was possible. And then I had to go to the Japanese embassy and get some past papers. I was surprised because now in Japan, throughout my scholarship, I was attending the advanced level class in Japan. And finally, after 1 year, I sat the I sat the university entrance exam with the Japanese students in Japanese. Right. So when I took the past papers that are given here at the advanced level, it was grade 1 paper. So I thought, my God, I mean, this is so easy, and I didn't have to think, no second thought, nothing. I immediately decided, okay, it's going to be Japanese. Other 3 subjects remain the same. And I remember, I will tell him this as well. I remember on the day of the exam, that is when the Japanese subject was held, there may have been many candidates in other parts of the country, but in Kandy it was only I, and in the examination hall it was only me who was sitting and writing, and there were 2 supervisors, 1 lady supervisor. And the 3-hour paper I managed to finish in 40 minutes because it was so elementary, right? And I was very confident, and it was nothing. So within 40 minutes I couldn't stay any longer. I walked up to the supervisor and handed over the paper saying, I'm done. And she said, "Oga tamalameyo karanda beri weda karanda epa." But she thought I had messed it up. But then when the results were out, I had an A for Japanese, and I had 261 marks, which was at that time sufficient to enter the University of Calicut to do languages. But as I got the letter from the university saying that I am selected, but the university was closed. Right, university was closed. I only had the letter, and even the Open University was closed. Nothing was open. Only academic institute that was operational at that time was Sri Lanka Law College. So out of, once again, didn't want to be a vagabond, so therefore I applied to sit for the law entrance exam. And I was placed 6th. I mean, there was a huge demand for law college at that time, because that was, as I told you, that was the only institute that was functioning. But I managed to secure the 6th place, all island, and managed to get it. But before that, I have to tell you, when I went to collect my law college application, they said, no, you can't do law entrance exam. I said, why? Because there are certain subjects that are accepted by the Council of Legal Education as entry criteria, and Japanese is not an accepted subject. Therefore, you cannot sit the law entrance exam. So then I argued. I said, why? The logic, although Japanese may not be a accepted subject, the other subjects that I have done, logic, political science, economics, has some nexus, some relevance to law. So therefore, why not give me a chance? Then he was, taking, some high words. He said, wait, natung karla sangeeta karla avilla nee dekhanna baya. I said, this is Japanese and not natung and sangeeta, there are 3 subjects that are relevant. And in that case, you write an appeal and give it to us. So I gave them an appeal, which was accepted after about 3 months. And they said, okay, Council of Legal Education recognize few more subjects, including Japanese, as entry criteria subjects. So that is how I managed to get into law college and accidentally become a lawyer later on. I never had that plan in my life to become a lawyer. So now, one fine day now, I was attending after a while the academic sessions that Kelaniya also started. Now I started attending both Kelaniya and law college lectures. And one fine day, these 3 samples that I brought, I'm coming back to them now. One fine day, I just took them out and dismantled one, right? Very peacefully dismantled one. Although I did not have any engineering background, any person with vision could see, right? So I took a piece of paper and started writing as to what it is made of. There was connectors, there were certain parts have been soldered, there were wires, but all these parts had small numbers. You could see through a magnifying glass. There were some numbers, so which means to identify the material. I wrote down these numbers and everything, and wrote out a piece of paper as to what it is made of. And then I had some friends working for Air Lanka at that time, Sri Lanka Today, and I procured this material from Singapore. And I visually meshed. I did not have a spec or a drawing. I visually meshed what I could see, the other 2 samples that I had, which I have not dismantled. And I visually meshed it and completed and dispatched to the person who took me around Toyota without any success, no reply. So I did this for about 1 year. Maybe I sent about samples about 4 times. There was no reply. And after about 1 year, out of curiosity, since I had this visiting card, business card, I made a call to this person who took me around Toyota. He said, I said, what is happening to my samples? On the very first day I told you, I mean, this is something that we will never outsource to another country. So don't ever try this. It's a futile effort. Don't, your time is, you are wasting your time. Right? But if I say that I was further encouraged, for the record's sake, that is not true. As a human being, you become discouraged. Right? You become discouraged. But for some reason that I still don't have, because I was specifically asked this question, why did you send samples the second time? Right? But for some reason, which I do not have an answer to date, after a few months, once again, maybe because sending samples didn't drain me out. It didn't drain my resources or so on. So I procured material once again and started sending samples to the same person. And then after about another year, sending about another 5-6 times, I made another call. By that time he was in the middle management. He said, I said, what is happening to my samples? He said, when we see the sender's address as yours, we don't even bother to open it now. We just throw it to the dustbin. Right? So it was such a, I mean, there can't be a better negative answer, So he said, I told you from the beginning, you are a crazy guy. You are the craziest guy I have seen. So don't pursue this. I mean, this is futile. I mean, you will not get anywhere. And do you understand what Toyota is? Right? And they will not do business with a country, let alone with a person, but a country that is hardly heard of. Right? So therefore, we will not do business with you. And the other thing, you do not understand the business structure of Japan. He said, although we do a little bit of manufacturing inside Toyota, we are basically a assembly plant, not a manufacturing plant. So there are companies who provide this particular component to Toyota within Japan, right, who are elected to manufacture it, who are licensed to manufacture this. So if at all, you should be talking to them and not to Toyota direct. So then it gave me some insight, and I said, okay, in that case, can you just give me the contacts of the people who are supplying this component to Toyota? He was kind enough to fax me. I had a fax machine by that time at home. He was kind enough to fax me 10 contacts of the people who were supplying this particular component to Toyota. I immediately procured material and dispatched to all 10 contacts that he had sent me. No reply. This process once again continued for 1 year without any success. None of the companies replied. One fine day when I was returning from lectures at law college, there was a fax, long fax. During those days, you put a fax roll, not the plain paper. And it has consumed almost the entire roll, which the red line indicated that it has consumed almost the entire roll. And when I cut it into pages, it came to about 32 pages. And it said, one company has acknowledged receiving my samples. It said, out of the 10 samples that we received, 2 can be accepted. 8 are defects. And following is a defect analysis report. It gave comprehensive analysis as to why the 8 were defects. Immediately, I was very happy now because at least someone has taken a look at the samples. So I immediately rectified the defects as I understand it, made another 10 samples and dispatched them. This time the answer was swift. They said, okay, this time out of the 10 you happen to send us, 8 are okay. 2 are defects, once again following is a defect analysis report. So now there was a lull period for about 3 months. Then they contacted me and they said, we will be sending material from Japan. Can you assemble 100 sensors and send us? I said, okay. And this 100 continued for about 2-3 months, right, every other week, bi-weekly. And then they wanted to know whether I could do 1,000. I said, fine. Right? It was all manually done at home. I had bought a booth and because there's some soldering to be done and taping to be done, certain things, manual things that had to be done. So now, after a while, they wanted to know whether I could do 10,000. Right? Now, when it was 1,000, it was just a small box, A4 size, a small box that was coming, material was coming, and then I assembled it, dispatched it again, reship it, sent by air, of course. But when it became 10,000, there were about 2 pallets coming, LCL cargo. And my mother was getting worried because now she is a person who wants to have the house trim and proper. Now she was getting worried, what is this now? Is it a factory or is it a house, right? So because material was here and there. And I also knew now this is in the ascending, right? So although they say popularly that entrepreneurs are risk takers, I quite disagree with that. Because I didn't want to take any risk as such, because I knew had I started my own operation by recruiting some people, by that time I had completed my industrial law at law college, and I knew the risk I was taking. That is because, I mean, tomorrow if I lose my order, I will still have to compensate even with my private properties, so which I didn't want to do. So therefore I went to existing companies that were into electronic component, manufacturing electronic components. And every company that I visited, they wanted to know as to how much I would pay them to get this product done in their production line. One last company that I visited, that is called SJ Electromac, which is located in Homagama. The owner is one Mr. Siri Samrakoni. And out of the other experience that I had visiting other companies, I wanted to know how much I could pay, offer him to get this product done in one of his production lines. He was such a gentleman. He told me, "Oh, this is a product that you are at the trial period. You have not succeeded with it as yet. So therefore, there is some idling labor in my factory. You can get this done in my factory, and if you become successful, then one day we can talk of the modalities as to how we are going to share profits." And then I got it done at SJ Electromac. It's 10,000. There was no quality issues because they had won in the 90s 3 consecutive years as the best exporter in the extra large category, presidential awards and quality awards, everything they have won. So they had this, they were doing for Ferronix for American market and so on. So therefore they had this quality mentality. So I had no quality issues. And this 10,000 within 3 years went up to 300,000 sensors a month, which was bringing in huge revenue to the company and to the country. So then the American orders of the company were declining and the orders from Japan were on the ascending. So therefore it was bringing in, and then later on I took oaths as an attorney. Then convocation of California University was held. I started my practice as an attorney in Gampaha, because I am from Gampaha, in the High Courts. And then I was immediately into my comfort zone because I was getting a huge income, right? And I became one of the most expensive lawyers because now I had a background, because there was money coming in from elsewhere. So I didn't have to settle for any less, right? And then, but there was a danger in this entire business model. That is, if the Japanese wanted to reverse this business that they were doing with me, it was just a matter of, stopping sending material to Sri Lanka. It was an easy step to retract. So I wanted to firm a commitment from them, right, so that they cannot take their step back, right. So now, as you know, when you do business with the Japanese, your faxes and emails are not going to replace your physical presence. You have to be there physically. So I became a frequent visitor to Japan, at least 5, 6, 7 times a year. So whenever I go to Japan, I see that all these 300,000 sensors that I do here, it has been re-inspected there in Japan. So my suggestion was, now they have about, once again, 100 people employed for that purpose. So I told them, why don't you start this facility in Sri Lanka? By the amount of salary that you pay these people for a month, you can run a factory in Sri Lanka for years. So why don't you start this? He said, no, we are very happy about the business model, current business model. There are no problems with it. We will continue this way. And then they never wanted, because I never wanted to start. I never had the resources to start this, because to start the operation here, you needed about the full complete operation. You needed about $8 billion US. Right. So on the other hand, I have to tell you honestly, had I had $8 billion US, I wouldn't have started a business at all. Right. So, but one fine day, now, as I told you, I was a frequent visitor to Japan, and the owner of the Japanese company, one Mr. Ito, he came to Sri Lanka at least twice a year. His schedule is usually he come and stay here for 1 week, and he goes to SJ Electromac to see the production process. And then on the last day, usually before he leaves, he take a good rest in Colombo, and he does his shopping, buy tea and all that, and take the 11 o'clock Sri Lankan Air flight to Narita. It was on one of these days that he was to leave that the Katunayake airport was attacked by the terrorists. So the moment I got to know that the Katanaga airport had been attacked, he was staying in Garadari. It was a better hotel at that time. So I told some of my friends at Garadari to disconnect this man's television, in his room, in his room. Because I wanted to keep this information away from him. And lucky for me, there was no curfew imposed in Colombo, so that he could get about his normal business on that particular during daytime. Because all these TV channels were giving a live coverage of the operations that were going on. Live coverage, right? And then during daytime, the news didn't reach him. But then all the flights were cancelled, which were on schedule were cancelled. But lucky, once again I was lucky a second time. The flight to Narita that night was on schedule. It was announced that it was on schedule. For the reason there was a VVIP from the Japanese embassy who had to be in Japan on time. So the flight was under high security, flight was departing. So now I had to take this gentleman to the airport that night. And even while I was approaching the airport, I knew that there were operations were still on. There were 2 terrorists still on the ceiling and the operations were on. But I had a friend called Kishan Nehampat who was in the Air Force at that time. I told him that I am coming with a friend of mine, VVIP for me. So make sure that he doesn't feel the impact of what is going on there. So as I approached the main gate, there were about 6 officers there to receive me. And he said, tell your guests to come with us. Then Mr. Ito was a little panicked because that was not the usual way of how he departed. Because they opened my boot, Air Force people, the person, they opened the boot and they took his luggage. Then Mr. Ito, he wanted to know as to what is happening. I said, don't worry, this is how my countrymen are treating me. And then he was whisked away through the airport. And until he left, he did not know that he was passing through an airport that was under terrorist attack. But of course, once he went back to Japan, through the media, he got to know on that particular day the airport has been on attack. But now the impact is different. Because now he is in his safe zone. But had he had to pass through an airport that he thought was under terrorist attack, he would have definitely resolved not to come to this country again, because they fear they love their life, I mean. And although we are used to this, T-56, AK-47s freely, but in Japan, if you might have gone, you will never see even a baton, you will not see any weapon in Japan. None of the security forces are carrying any weapons, right, in public for that matter. So their perception of security is very high. So if that is disturbed, they will think, forget about this business, we will never return. That is what I was trying to avoid. But then they got to know through the media. And after a while, they summoned me for a meeting. I knew that what they were trying to tell me was that it was not feasible doing business with Sri Lanka. Because now, you may not know, there were insurance underwriters like the Lloyds. They introduced a huge levy to the ships that were entering Colombo port, right, or entering Sri Lanka for that matter, and the aircraft. So if I had to pay that levy, any international business, doing international business with Sri Lanka is not feasible, right. So Japanese are such gentlemen, they will never stop business with you by stop sending emails and stop sending faxes and not answering the phone. That is not their style. They will summon you, have a meeting. For these particular reasons, we cannot proceed with this business. We will have to stop it now. And if we stop it now, what are the liabilities that will be incurred upon you? And how can you settle them? Do you have the capacity to do that? If you do not have the capacity, here is our contribution. They will settle it that way. They will not put you to minus and stop it. Right? They will at least, raise you a little bit than wherever you started from, and that is how they will do it. So I knew this was the agenda. Although they did not communicate the agenda to me, I was now in Japan. As I told you, since I was a frequent visitor, there was a house that I had purchased in Nagoya. That is where I used to stay. Even now, that is where I stay when I go. So now, I was there at my residence in Nagoya, watching TV. It was around 9 o'clock in the night. And it was at this time, I saw that the Twin Towers, meeting was scheduled for the 12th, I think, and September. Twin Towers were attacked. This visual was just in front of me. I had to confess that I am not happy at all for the lives that were sacrificed on this incident. But after 5 minutes, I knew that I am through. I knew that the agenda that is being about to be brought up tomorrow has become obsolete. Because now the point the Japanese were trying to take was that Sri Lanka is a dangerous place. So we can no longer do business with them. But they cannot now single out Sri Lanka and talk of security, because the entire world, because I can remember at that time, the only country that was marked in red as a dangerous area to travel was Sri Lanka. Even Somalia was taken out. Right. Sri Lanka was the only country. So now overnight, because of one incident, the entire world became red. Right. So now next day, usually the Japanese, they start their meetings right on the dot. They move their agenda very fast. But this particular meeting they did not start because the agenda was obsolete. There was no reason why they should proceed with the meeting. And everyone had their newspapers, Asahi and Yomiuri, that is Japanese newspapers, and every cover page had photographs of the planes hitting the towers. And Mr. Ito, wanted to know, let us see whether our friend from Sri Lanka has something to say. And I said, if there is a safe, because there was a huge world map in the background of where we were sitting. I was telling them, if you can show me a place where you can call safe in this world map, can someone show me? And everyone had a big laugh, and that was the end of the matter. So as a happy man, I came back to Sri Lanka because nothing got cancelled, and we continued. And one fine day, Mr. Ito phoned me and said, after so many years, I have decided to concede to your request and come to Sri Lanka and invest, look for a land. It was very specific, is what he said. Then I said, right, then since I am from Gampaha, even Katnayaka and Biagama both souls were rather close. But when I came to Biagama, I realized it was just 20 minutes drive and less congestion. So I decided to locate myself in Biagama. This was a bare land at that time. And the first 50 million was sent to my private account. Although I was an attorney, I did not know that you had to first, register and then obtain BOI status and then open an account under that name and then get down the money. I was in such a hurry, the money came to my private account, but all in good faith. Every cent was audited, right? And that is one of my life philosophies. I think you have framed that question as well. Honesty is the best policy. Because with this 50 million, I would have easily disappeared, which I didn't. That was not my interest. So then later on, the banks were approaching me. Banks were telling me, he doesn't have to bring 100%. We can fund 40% or up to 50%. If it's bringing $4 million, we'll give $4 million. So I told Mr. Ito, you don't have to bring the entire thing. You can bring $4 million and the balance we can raise locally. He said, no. Your country is interested in me coming there because of my money. So why should I bring half of it? I will bring 100%. So it was a greenfield investment. He bought entire 8 million from Japan and started this operation here. And this 8 million was recovered within just 2.5 years, because the product that we do, as I told you, the quality requirement is called 1 ppm quality. That is 1 part per million is the defect tolerance rate. So when you maintain that kind of quality, the margins are very high, right? Because now India and China, they have failed with this product. They have tried and they have failed. So therefore, I am supplying both India and China as well. Right? So last year the turnover was $38 million, and I'm having about 300 employees. Recently, I had to purchase the factory in front of this factory as well, because we are running at full capacity. And that factory, I bought it just 10 months ago. And that is also now running at full capacity. So when you take the value addition per individual criteria, that is, you divide $38 million by 300, then you get the value addition per individual. And when you take that criteria, Lanka Harness becomes the biggest export in the country. Not Brandix, not Mars. All these companies put together, still they are far below. You might say, but they earn more than you. Of course they do. But when you divide by the employees that they have, the value addition per individual criteria, in that particular criteria, I am far ahead. I'm proud to say this. We are far ahead. So that is how this company, this facility, came into existence, and Sri Lanka was introduced to almost a virtually new industry, where otherwise no doors were open. And throughout my story, you understood that it was not a straight line to success. There were failure after failure. By advanced level, I failed. Then I went when I went to do law entrance exam. They said no, you can't do law. And even at Kelani, when I went to do I wanted to major in English. They said no, you have not done English way advanced, so therefore you cannot major in English. Right? You cannot major in English. Then one fine day I met the Professor D.C.R. who was the head of the department. He told me that every year they need about 25 students for the English faculty, and he gets only about 12 students. Then I said, in that case, why don't you give an opportunity to someone like me who is keen, to specialize in English. And he said, once again, give an appeal. Right. So I gave him an appeal, and he took up the matter with the University Senate, and they came up with a condition that I should offer English as a subject at my JQ, and then I should get a B plus or more to qualify to specialize in English, and that is how I paid my way to specialize in English. So every time throughout my story, the key point is that there was no straight line to success. Right? There were ups and downs, failure after failure. Right? Recently, there was a nice quotation by Ratan Tata. I quoted that. He says that even an ECG machine indicates that you are alive when it goes up and down. If it is straight line, you are dead. Right? So therefore, there is no straight line to success. So this is my story. So now it is open to you. Unless I believe if I do not come, when I come out with a comprehensive story, the entire skeleton is fleshed. You have the complete thing at your hand. Now you can question, right? But unless there will be question marks here and there, how did you do that? Yeah.
Today you are a business leader of multi-million-dollar business. Turning back to the past, did you have a childhood dream of becoming a business leader? Was there any influence from your family?
Well, I think there was a value as this. For example, when I started my career as an attorney, I had this cognitive, what you must have learned, cognitive dissonance. Right? There are certain things that I could not agree with my heart and mind. That is because now I was earning money, I was charging fees from people who were much poorer than I, right? Who, sometimes I'm looking at them, I don't know whether they can even, find their daily bread. So, but as a lawyer, I was compelled to, charge them and make money from them. I was wondering, what is my positive contribution to the Sri Lankan economy? What is my contribution to the country? You appear for a bunch of criminals, because I was appearing in high courts, right? I was appearing in murder cases, rape cases, and all this, to bail applications, then writ applications, and so on. But I was wondering now, what is my contribution? Right? So that cognitive dissonance was there. Right? I think that came from the childhood values that my parents have inculcated in my mind. Right? Saying that you should do something to the country. So that is how your parents, I'm sure, when you are small, they say, that is what they say. So this value is the driver, I think, to change gears and get into something that was bringing in foreign revenue. Actually, when I started this, I was a very happy man inside. Not that I'm not happy now, I'm happy now as well. So it gives you a lot of freedom to your mind, and you can, hold your chest high in the air, because no one can say anything, because you are bringing so much revenue to the country. And I think that was the driver.
Actually, listening to yourself, I was feeling ashamed myself. Because I'm a qualified electronic engineer, but I have never thought of messing up with businesses. But being an professor of arts, being an attorney at law, you had the courage to go ahead and fight with these sensors and build up a company which has a high quality standard, 1 part per million. Now, we heard that your story, but I want to know specifically how you broke that barrier, like to be the first Sri Lankan to convince that Japanese people, and now again you're talking about 300 workers. Quality may be inside too, but how do you manage the people to get it? How do you do that?
Answering the first part of your question, that is, I always tell people that don't try to limit yourself to the professional or academic qualifications that you have obtained. Because the moment I became a lawyer, had I thought, okay, this is my profession. Why I am thinking so? Because I had a qualification. I had a qualification as an attorney. But maybe your area of specialization is elsewhere, or you might have your opportunity, your luck, or whatever, outside your sphere, outside your professional qualification. So you should have an open mind. Just because you did engineering, maybe in some other area, in other social innovation, because I believe now, for example now, what do you call installment selling? Installment selling has done great revolutions in the society and to the economies than one single scientific innovation, right? So therefore, it is not an engineer who designed, or it is not a social scientist who designed this installment, someone thought about it. And for example, take the example of the zipper. The zipper was originally designed to close what is called huge grain bales, right? When they transported grain in Europe, there were transits between trains. So if the grain became exposed to air, it will become contaminated. So to prevent it from getting in touch with the air, they used huge grain bales, and to lock it, they used what is called a huge zipper made out of iron. About 2 people had to hang on it and bring it down, right? So one lady who was passing by, right, who was wearing a jacket, she was thinking, what if I had the same device in my jacket, rather than having to button it up every day, one by one, just one stroke and it will close. So it is that thought. She was not an engineer, just an ordinary woman passing by, right? So therefore, it's just a matter of being simple and open to the world, and rather than restricting yourself to your qualifications. And even this, fiber optic, right, which revolutionized the telecommunication industry, did not come from they had telecommunication labs best telecommunication labs in Germany, in Japan. It didn't come from them. It came from a simple glass making company called Corning. Right? So therefore, I do not think that your qualifications or that you can decide, okay, this is my field and stick to that. No, I think you should be fluid, you should be open. Maybe you grasp it elsewhere.
In your opinion, what is the most important trait of a leader?
Once again, innovation, I think. You have to be innovative.
Do you think leadership is personality driven?
Since I studied this, I know one school of thought is there. Yeah, great personality theory, yes. Partly in my case, I think that is how this company is being driven. It's mainly the personality, I think that. Others tell me that is how you treat it.
So, how do you recruit and develop your
Very important, yeah. When I recruit employees, I do the interviews myself. And I do not look at the paper qualifications. Instead, I have an IQ test in place, which results to date that has direct link with what they do once they are in the production line. For example, this one is that I give them 10 sensors. One is defective. So I will time as to the time that is consumed for them to find the defective one. So if they do it very quickly, which means this is very relevant to what I am doing here. Right? Some people have all the qualifications, but they don't have that special knack of doing it. Some people, even without O levels, they are very sharp in these matters. So there is no connection. So I do the interviews. And the other thing further to expand my answer now, we have a training program where we send each and every employee to Japan. But sending to Japan is not the point. Everyone that I have sent, over nearly 200 people, everyone has returned to the country. So in this company we have what is called a trust culture in place. Trust culture, that is very important. That is a highlight. So I trust them, because even when they put up this facility, the architects wanted to know whether they could fix cameras to the production floor so that I could monitor them and have monitors around my table. I said no. Because I believe the moment you fix a camera behind a human being, that is, you are encroaching his dignity. You are attacking his dignity. Which means you are telling him, I am not trusting you, I am monitoring you. You can monitor animals but not human beings. Supposing any of you, would you like, to have a camera behind you? You don't, right? So then they are working because the boss is watching, not because they are having any loyalty to the organization. So this kind of quality cannot be achieved with that mentality. Right?
How do you make decisions? Do you have any advisors or do you have a process, or is it different each time you make decisions?
Well, I should say, I have been somewhat autocratic, because now in taking this decision, business decision, to start this business, I was told by many, even my friends, Madang, it is not possible to achieve this kind of quality with Sri Lankan work ethics. Right? So it was single-handedly my decision, because everyone I spoke to said, no, you can't do it with the Sri Lankan workers. This kind of quality you can't. Right? But as I told you at the conference, but looking at all the great monuments and the precision work that our ancestors had undertaken, I had thoughts to the contrary. They had done it 2000 years ago. So this DNA must be somewhere in our people, So you can't say that they cannot do it. That is a recently developed perception. So, and here I am today. Right? So decision making, even the business decision, it was single-handed, as you. So as a matter of policy, therefore I have stopped seeking too many opinions. When you seek too many opinions, you don't achieve anything, and you have the best idea and put it to a committee. That's the end of that idea. Nothing happens. There will be some people will show these are the negatives. Nothing will happen.
They show 1,000 reasons.
1,000 reasons not to do it. It cannot be done. Yeah. So if you are confident, but do the basic study, right? Because it should not be too costly, any failure. And if it is less, because now doing a product here where they pay about 200,000 in Japan, and do it here, definitely you don't have to do any study here. It's physical, it's not.
So in leadership, we learn a lot of theories like need for achievement, what makes a person a leader. Like say need for achievement, psychological needs, the power and affiliation, risk preferences, locus of control. So there are a lot of technical terms. Leaving that aside, what drove you to become a leader?
Well, I think it was even during school days. At school I was the head prefect, right? And that leadership, I do not know whether maybe the gene comes from my father, right? Of course, the gene comes from your father, and that particular leadership trait. Well, I cannot say this is what is called a triggering point. I don't believe in that triggering point, because I believe that everything is connected. Right? But if one can say the triggering point is me receiving the scholarship to go to Japan. If I hadn't gone to Japan, but then I argue if I was not born, I wouldn't have gone to Japan anyway. So all this is connected. Once you're born, you can't isolate one incident and say this is the triggering point. I started from here. No, because if you have a Buddhist, I believe in karma, and I believe that this is connected. So even the leadership quality, I think. During my year as head prefect, it gave me enormous exposure. It grew me to be a real leader during that particular year in schools, because I had about 40 prefects in my guild, and even the prize giving, sports meet, cricket matches, everything, you had to place your prefects, and you had to have 100% discipline and all that. That was a big task at that time, and I think during my year it was executed perfectly, and everyone was praiseworthy of what I was doing. That is where I think I, sharpened my leadership skills.
What is your attitude towards innovation, and how you have used technology for the business, as the current business is more towards labor?
Yeah. My equation is innovate or perish. Today the game is you don't innovate, you are walking towards exit. And the other point is now, for example, even for the airbag, if I am only engrossed in the airbag, tomorrow if they are going to have some substitute for the airbag, like a magnetic field, the moment there is an accident, there is a magnetic field and you are not going to be thrown away. So then I am out of business. So therefore I have diversified to other products as well, like the sun visor ram and so on. So therefore innovation, of course, although it is labor intensive, we have an innovative culture here. The communication here is direct. There are no grapevines. Any employee from the production flow, without any prior appointment, can walk up to my table and then talk to me. They can talk to me. They can, and we have a system where they come up with the ideas and we appraise these ideas. And of course, there's a reward system as well. where how they will be rewarded, but of course it should either decrease the production time, and we measure it by the value that it adds to the company, the value it adds in monetary terms. Because no scientific, however it might be scientifically very important, but if it is not going to add value, if it is not going to speak dollars and or rupees and cents, it has no value to the organization. It can be a very brilliant idea, but then it has to be transformed into a money-making thing. In my context, it has to be that. So innovation, of course, in place, because it is. I don't think any organization can do that. And even this business idea, I think it is an innovative idea because it's a business innovation. Because innovation is not invention. Invention is you find something that was not there yesterday. But innovation is little improvements, right? Innovation, right? And I was talking about innovation means it is innovation coming from within. Innovation, there's novelty coming from within, right? So I came out with a nice example the other day. I said, when an egg is pressurized from the outside and it breaks, life ends. And when an egg is pressurized from the inside and it breaks, life begins. So therefore, all great things happen from within, not from the outside. Right? So when one person is enlightened, you can enlighten many more. Right? Like in my case.
Sir, now we know that you are a reputed business leader in private sector. I want to take this discussion to another dimension.
Yeah.
We know, like recently, you have been appointed as a director of State Resource Management
Yes.
Corporation.
Yes.
Could you explain why did you wanted to get this position and what are your plans to?
Well, I think it was the state sector that they thought. Maybe the hierarchy had heard my story and thought, okay, this is a good guy to transform many of the state resources. Now, what is the task is there are 223 government operations that has been vested under this new company, all loss-making companies, right? Like the Sanusala, then BCC, Lanka Tiles, yeah, not the Lanka Tiles that you have, Lanka Pigan Sanstha, right? Jeevithira Pigana Khadala Nahamai, and so many government entities. And the plan is my task is to revive them. But when I started working with the government sector, I understood it's worlds apart. Worlds apart. Right? Because now we had to appoint a CEO, for example, for this company because I'm a director. And I can't, be engaged in administrative work. So we advertised on paper, we had an interview and we recruited a person to run the company as a CEO. So then he was given a TO in terms of reference as to what, And then the other day, the secretary of the ministry, he summoned a meeting with the minister. And he says that the authority that is given to the CEO under the TOR supersedes the powers that he had received from his letter of appointment. So he says now for the past 6 months, the secretary has not done any work. So now he says, for the reason that for him to not to work, is that there's another letter, another authority, challenging his authority. Then now being a lawyer, I said, now right, okay. Now show me your letter. And who has given you a letter? Usually the minister secretary is appointed by the president. Right? I said, now you have to look at the source. Right? Now CEO's letter, it is our company that has given the letter to him. Right? The State Resources Management Corporation has given to him. Right? It is not the president. So you have to look at which is powerful. You have to look at the source that it is coming. It's where it comes from. So letter coming from the president is definitely more powerful than a letter that I write. And he is saying that I have given the same powers to him. So how can he say that? And for the past 6 months done nothing. It's a crime, Then I asked, I was very rude maybe. I said, did you receive your salary for the past 6 months? If he had a conflict like that and if he was not working, he doesn't have the ethical right to draw his salary. Right? So I have to tell you, there's utter waste in the government sector and it's very difficult to get things, moving. Very, very difficult. Because every time you try to do something, the treasury will come and show some provision and say, according to this is monetary regulations, you can't exceed than this. Even in recruiting the CEO, we had a problem. They said maximum you can allocate is 80,000 rupees. I said for 80,000 rupees, no one will come. I said at least 300,000 you have to pay, at least. I said even for 300,000, a good man will not come. We had to offer at least 2 million for a good person and a vehicle and everything. So I said, okay, you can go up to 300,000 after crying so much. They agreed. So it's very difficult, and it's two different worlds apart. But here you decide and you carry on tomorrow. But that's not the case with the public sector.
I think I think it's better for the country and for you to focus to the private sector and develop the attitudes of the people outside there and get the country to higher state by that way.
Yeah, but it's very unfortunate because now even the chartered accountant, my last question was, there were 1,600 in that at Watershed. My question was, I want to know whether there were any Pradesh Sabha members in the audience. And then I want to know whether there were any provincial councillors. None. But unfortunately, while we were talking about innovation that day, but they will be making policies, they will be making legislating, right? The laws that you and I will be governed by. So we cannot, keep on the sidelines every day thinking, okay, political power is handled by someone else, right? But we have to find a socially innovative way to rid ourselves of this system, or unless for the next 100 years we will be complaining.
Your responsibilities are growing as executive chairman.
Yeah.
You hold a lot of responsibilities. The competition is growing day by day.
Yeah.
How do you balance work and the personal life?
Well, one thing that is lucky for me is I'm in a virtual blue ocean, because now this product, as I told you, because of the quality that we are supposed to maintain, not many companies want to get into this, thinking that they cannot achieve it or fearing failure. So therefore, as I said, I started exporting to Japan, but now I'm exporting to Romania, Germany, Thailand, Indonesia, India, China, right, and so many other countries. Therefore, there is enough and more time, because I don't have to worry about the competition. In fact, there are so many buyers I have some, from time to time I have declined, because I cannot handle the volumes. Because this is something that you cannot increase just because you have orders. It has to be systematic. You have to train people, get them to that mentality, and then expand very slowly. Just because you are greedy and you want to have the whole cake, if you try to expand, that's the end of you, right? So you have to be very systematic, and it's a very slow progress, slow growth. That is why I started with 27 people back in 2002, but today I have 300. That is just tenfold, right? So it took 12 years for me to get there. So tomorrow I can't recruit another 300 and have another factory and get. I will of course have orders, but then maintaining the quality will be a problem, right? So coming back to work-life balance, well, I make sure, because now you can't postpone to live, right? One day I'm going to retire and then I'm going to, you have to live your life then and there, right, as it comes. And as you know, I go home around by 5:30 I'm home. I play the guitar and sing. Then during weekends I have a drink, right? And when I have a drink, most of the time it's with my family, right? It's with my family, right? People might ask, is it right to inculcate the value of drinking and have your children around? I don't see anything serious, as long as you don't get drunk and fall on the ground. You have a decent drink. And I started playing the guitar, and my daughter, she also can play the piano and many instruments. And my wife can play the conga drums. So it's virtual, And sometimes my friends join us, and I have a very light side to my life. And I don't take things too seriously. Because people who take things too seriously don't achieve anything. We have to have that. Because the best example is, when USA had to send to outer space, they spent millions of dollars designing a pen that would write against gravity. So as you know, ball pen, if you write it, this way, after a while it will not write, right? Because of it is against gravity. So they were designing a pen where it could work in a vacuum without any gravity. But the Russians sent a pencil. Simple.
Do you have a role model who has inspired you?
Yeah, my father.
Was he like what? You could explain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now he comes. He was into electronics and he's the best knowledgeable person I have met when it comes to electronics. Even because he left the land of living in 2003. And even during times of war, when these Pukharas and the aircrafts were, dysfunctional, sometimes the engineers didn't come from Argentina or wherever. My father is the person who corrected me. Then I want to know from him because now his engineering is what he learned. He had scores of books. He has a huge library. I said, what you have learned is not, modern day. I mean, how do you do this? He said, basics are the same. If you know your basics, anything is possible. He is one person that has inspired me. And he is the person who instilled in me that you can. That you can. Even when I started my career as a lawyer, my father was telling every day, just wait and see, you will be the best lawyer in the country. When it comes from your own family, it inspires you. Right? And I have heard him telling his friend, overheard, right? Mage puta thamai kawada Lankaye hondama lawyer wenna. And when you hear that, you resolve within you. I have to work hard and get there. That is, he believes. And in fact, he had a case when I took course as a lawyer. He had a case, a land matter for that. So he had a president's counsel. He retained. The moment I took course, he removed the president's counsel and gave the case to me. So I was very nervous because now I don't want to lose a case, which is my father's case. So I said, why don't you have the same president's counsel? He said, no, man, do parallel come up. And I won the case. Yeah. So he's my role model.
So, what was the toughest situation you are facing in life?
I think it was, it's how you define what is tough. I think, because my story is not, rags to riches story. I was not a person, who didn't have to eat or provide my basics. Of course, I was born to a fairly wealthy family. They had land, they had property, and so on. So it is very beautiful when you say that you were very poor. You started with 1 cent, 50 cents, and today you have millions. But that is not the case with me. I had enough to live, and even as a lawyer, I would have survived. Yeah. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, in your life, like when we feel like we see from the day you get the response that your samples are rejected.
Yeah.
In any case,
I think that was the most difficult. I think that was the most difficult part because, as I told you, as a lawyer, there was a cognitive dissonance. I couldn't agree with what I was doing, and I think that was the most difficult period that I was passing by. And
when did you stop practicing as a lawyer?
Well, actually, not yet. I do take up cases still, but I quote a very high fee. But accept it if it comes to my turn. So. But my advice is never get involved in a case. That ruins your life.
What makes you angry, sir?
Non-compliance. Non-compliance, and when people don't understand the basic things, For example, now, it's very rare, but of her, I told them because I had a meeting with this Japanese gentleman, and I said, tell you guys to come up at 10:50. So by 9:55 or I think few minutes to 10, she came and told me, "Sir, they are here." That makes me angry because I have given clear instructions, telling tell you guys to come up at 10:50. So she doesn't have to come and tell me again that you are here already. But what makes me angry? When I drive on the road.
That's kind of
But now, of course, being mature, I have come to terms with it. There's no point in, getting angry, so I relax. If there is a traffic jam, I listen to some music and, either make a call to one of my friends, so that you are relaxed. Because there's no point, in trying to beat. You can't do it. There's nothing you can do about it. So, other than that, it's very rare that I get angry.
These days there's a mega trend. People migrating from this country moving towards Australia, or young professionals.
Yeah.
Most of them try to migrate. What do you think about that?
Especially the rule of law. Because you have to know someone to get something done. Anywhere you apply, there is no equal to equal. I am of course a fan of this president. Also being a fan of this president. At the same time I have to criticize it. Bad news. There is no rule of law. Totally disagree with how the city all this. Because now Sri Lanka has been resilient. Because we had we had a war for over 30 years. And still here we are, Sri Lanka is there. Right? We were very resilient. If this happened to any other country, African country, they wouldn't have survived. But we survived. But did that happen automatically? No. I believe because we had systems in place. Systems were not politicized. For example, the judiciary, right? Attorney General Department, the Treasury, right? So many other institutes were run by professionals, irrespective of the governments. But for the first time, we see that these institutes are being encroached by and politicized. So there is a huge danger in that, right? If that happens, whether we can survive the next crunch that comes our way. So therefore, people are leaving because of this. Simplest thing, you try to get your child to your school, see what you have to go through. You have to know how many people you have to know, you have to go through. You are qualified, you have all the qualifying criteria, but to get a seat of education for your child, see the hassle that you have to go through in this country. You go to New Zealand, the moment the child is born, the seat is secured, it's there. Right? So they have a system in place. It doesn't matter who you are. But here it's not the case. You can call the police station and say, I'm so and so, but you can get anything done in this country.
So now, we totally agree with your view on this thing, but we believe if we go in the negative terms, we will end up again feeling negative about it.
Yeah.
But looking at a person like you who had fight.
Yeah.
Who had earned and found everything you have earned.
Yeah.
What is the message you would like to give to the young professionals?
Yeah. Now, recently I was addressing a gathering of university graduates who were about to come out of the university. It was not their convocation. Something prior to that they have organized internally. So as I told you, the same question that I asked at TEDx. That is, because they have about 40. I want to know as to what their aspirations were once they come out of the university. So everyone said, I want to work for Bendix, I want to work for Mars Holdings, Haley's, Keels, all the big names in the country. Right? So if every person from the young generation thought to work to an existing blue chip company or conglomerate, then where is the generation that creates these blue chip companies for the coming generation to work? That is my question. Right? So, there itself you become not that I'm pointing my finger at you, working for Dialogue or whatever. But then being there now, but you told me at the outset that you were trying to embark on your own entrepreneurship and tap into your own entrepreneurial spirit. You have to begin somewhere. And that's a very good thing, because entrepreneurship should start new ventures, and that is the need of the hour, I think.
How do you go about learning and growing as a leader? How do you ensure that you don't stagnate?
I read a lot. And I keep a diary, and I keep a diary every day. And for the past 30 years, I've been doing this, right? And in this diary, the first 2 pages are dedicated as to what I want to do in that particular year, not my long-term plans. Simply, you can't say targets or whatever. I write it, the things that I want to do in 2013. Then I have a list. I write it in my diary for the reason, diary is something that you associate every day. So I see what is written every day. So in that, this year one needs that to read at least 12 books. Right? to read at least 12 books. And I make sure that it is not only about business management, it is not only about law, from different fields. Because unless you get what is called the pipe vision, if you read only about management, that is what is called pipe vision. You only know about management, you don't know the rest of the world. If you study only about law, you only know about law and you don't know to bring in other knowledge and interpret it. Right? So that is there. And other things like I have written to go to Yal at least twice and to photograph the leopard, and these kind of simple things are written on my diary, the first few pages. And now tomorrow is November. So when I see, I will see, okay, what I have accomplished and what I have still to accomplish. Of course, monetary goals are also there at the end of this year. What is the savings that I want to have in my account? What is the savings that I want to have for my company? All this corporate, everything is there. Written in simple terms. Because whatever you have in mind becomes 100 times more powerful when you write it down. Right? You might have it in mind, but if you put it into words and write it somewhere, it becomes 100 times powerful. And every time you refer to it, it becomes a driving force. You feel guilty if you have not achieved it. Right.
So you have made a lot of achievements. You have been the junior TOYP award winner in 2006, and in 2013 you have been awarded the platinum honor.
From your PIM.
So turning back, what was your highest achievement? Yeah, you treasure most.
But I think it's yet to come.
Yet to come. So that is the attitude towards life.
Yeah.
So you believe that the future is going to be more.
Sure. But TOIP and thanks to PIM as well for the platinum, there are a lot of, they motivate you a lot. They are motivating factors. It's nice to be recognized, People sometimes say, I don't like this, That's not true, I like it. People sometimes ask, can I publish? I say, please publish. Why not?
It has two folds. One thing is it is an intrinsic motivation for you, and it motivates the people who are the young people, like who are looking at you and like seeing that.
And as you rightly say, I believe that an award is given to a person not to put it in a closet and forget it, but to show it to the world and say, I achieved it. So that many others, the message will be inculcated in the minds of many others to achieve the same. When I received the TYP in 2006, actually Murli is from my school, Muralidharan. And Muralidharan received the TYP in 2003, right? And I was invited because he is a friend of mine. So I was there. It was at Colombo 5-star hotel. It was today ceremony Lakeside. The name was different at that time. So I was there at the ceremony, and I saw it was such a glamorous event. There was a citation about you. Then there's a video clip about you, and then you go up to the platform and receive the award, and all the photographers come and take photographs, and you go to the podium and make a speech, and when you come down, so many people, flock, and that, I was caught up with that, I thought, my God, I also should get up there and receive this. I was motivated actually. So 2006, I should say, that was one reason that I applied for it. You had applied to get the TYP. That was one reason. I got, of course, different category on entrepreneurship. And then awards are there to show the world, okay, this is what I have achieved. Why don't you?
Fortune favors the brave. Do you think that describes you?
Throughout my story, I think many times, not imposing curfew in Colombo, flight to Narita on time, they would have been life changes for me. We had the Narita flight being cancelled, and had he got to know, he would have decided to leave this country without coming back to this country. That would have changed everything. So fortune definitely has played a part. I still believe.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the time taken for us to be here, and I think it was more inspiration, very much inspirational for us.
There is a small token of appreciation.
I'd like to invite
Charming.
my colleague to present it to you.
Wow, so nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. For all the best in the assignment.